NJ.com and the Star Ledger welcome to the Rutgers Rant, your one-stop podcast for the Scarlet Knights, with your hosts Steve Politti and Rutgers insiders Brian Fonseca and Pat Lenny. Let's start chopping.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Rutgers Rant. Politti here. Got a big show, big bowl preview, the Rate Bowl for Rutgers, which is the second-rate bowl for Rutgers, but not a second-rate bowl. You guys see what I did there? Since second-rate and then second-rate bowl. All right.
Oh, I got you.
I see what you did there.
I got you.
Good job, Grandpa. You're funny this morning. All right. No surprise going to the Rate Bowl. A little hope there. We might get some mayo over Greg Schiano's head. Never materialized. Virginia Tech ended up there. Rutgers was not going to play in that game if Tech was there. That's what happened. What do we think about the Rate Bowl? I mean, I guess, looking at this, Kansas State might be the least sexy opponent possible and the best opponent possible. Is my analysis correct? I mean, they're 8-4, but looking at the schedule, they didn't lose any bad teams.
So I would say it is the least attractive opponent as far as like a billing. It's a team Rutgers has played in a bowl game before, and there's a nice symbolic symmetry here where they're the team they beat in 2006 to put the cherry on top of the best season in modern program history. It's at the same place where they broke the bowl bid, the bowl drought, the 27-year bowl drought. There's nice symmetry there, but I just would have liked it to be a Texas Tech, a TCU, a Baylor even, a team Rutgers has never played. This kind of just feels like, almost a Greg 1.0 rehash. But that being said, I think once the game is being played on the field, I think this could be a really fun, back and forth, exciting game. So there's that.
Right. Symmetry doesn't sell tickets, Pat.
No, symmetry doesn't sell tickets, but style might, as Brian was kind of pointing at, this could be a really good game. Like on paper, the two teams are very similar stylistically, and Kansas State has a great running game and a quarterback who can run the ball really well. So I think from an actual, like, if you're there for the football, which no one really, I guess, is at this point, but if you want to see a good game, I think this is going to be a really fun back and forth, like two teams that are physical up front, built the same way, and can kind of get after it. So I think Kansas State has done a good job just being very consistent in the Big 12, right? They've got a nice string of bowl games going. So, it's maybe not the sexiest brand, but solid opponent, I would say.
Right. I just think the bigger issue is the location. There were so many bowl games that would be more accessible to people, cheaper to people. Like, I think the price and the date is such a buzzkill as far as getting people on the road. I will be really curious to see how many people travel to this game. That will be one, the diehard of diehards, and two, the people that the R funds should send out with a hat in hand asking for money, because they got a lot of money to be spending on a Christmas Day flight to Arizona.
Yes. I know bowl, their fan bases are judged on whether or not you travel to a bowl. I'm sorry, if you don't go to this bowl, there's no one who could hold it against you. And I know you guys were looking at flights. I looked at flights like $800 for a direct flight, for a decent flight. I think a lot of them are already taken. $250 for JW Marriott, whatever the heck it is. I mean, I get it. There are probably other hotels you can find. It is just hard to get there. You can't load up the family truckster and drive to Phoenix. And over Christmas, too. That's the other part of it. I forget, right. Even if it were, say you had money to spend. If you had money to spend in the game and it was January 3rd, okay. But a lot of people are going to say, look, I can afford to go, but I don't want to go. Like, I want to flush. I don't want to spend Christmas in Phoenix. I got my family coming over. We have a routine. I mean, people have, I watch it on TV. So I would be very surprised if the number of fans who go to that game is in 4 digits.
4 digits is a little, I'd be a little bit more ambitious than
1,000 from here, from New Jersey. You think there's going to be 1,000 people who are going to pay that money to go to this game?
Well, it's hard to quantify how many people are coming from New Jersey, how many people are retired in Arizona that are Rutgers alums that will go. Mm-hmm. It's hard to quantify that. I would say, 1,500, 2,000 would be, the bare minimum I would hope for. Another thing that's disappointing to me, and I did not realize this. You guys probably knew this already. I did not put 2 and 2 together until last night. They're playing another bowl game in a baseball stadium. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I thought they were playing at where the Cardinals play or the Arizona U of A plays. What?
I was in the same boat. Brian. I was Chase Field. I was like, that's where the Cardinals play. Nope, it's where the Diamondbacks play.
Yeah, I knew that. Unfortunately, yeah, and they have a pool out in the outfield, Chase Field, but I imagine it'll be closed. Yeah, another baseball stadium. Yeah, this is what these bowls. I mean, I get it. This is what these bowl games are like. You know, there's a big drop off between obviously now the playoff, and this is the one thing I was going to say. And last year I was optimistic that these bowl games would get attention and people would be excited about them. I mean, I think the playoff has just swallowed it whole, like completely. And I wonder how many people stayed on through that show after they revealed the field and they talked about it, and people turned off the TV. But the drop off now from the playoff to that next level of bowls, which is where Rutgers would have been had Greg Schiano not called a timeout to ice the kicker against Illinois. They'd be in the Citrus Bowl, right? The drop off from that is steep. And now the drop off from there to here, it is very noticeable. I don't know how you guys feel about it. If you guys felt the same way I did, during the last few days about the hype about this.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Just look at the matchups that came to be, right? The Citrus Bowl is Illinois versus South Carolina, a team that probably had an argument to be in the playoff. Yeah. So you go from, maybe beating Illinois, getting into that game and playing a really good opponent. And then look what Michigan does, right? They were right in the argument with Rutgers at 6-6. They go out and beat Ohio State, and all of a sudden Michigan is they got the striped helmet back, the wings helmet, and they're playing Alabama, right? Yep. So just think of the drop off from that, and then you go to like the Pinstripe Bowl, right? Nebraska, Boston College, the Mayo Bowl, Minnesota, Virginia Tech, huge drop off. So Rutgers, after the loss to Illinois, it was either going to be the Duke's Mayo Bowl or Rate Bowl. I don't know that there's a huge difference there, right?
The difference
other than the date,
right? The date, the traveling, fan, convenience is the difference. The quality of the game really isn't that much better. The only upside here would be to play high level opponents that you would never play outside of maybe the playoff, right? Rutgers will never play South Carolina. The Cratch Bowl will never happen unless it comes in a bowl game. And we were one time out away from the James Cratch Bowl, the former host of this podcast. And it's crazy the butterfly effect that happened off of that. I have never really been a huge fan of bowl games. I don't really find the significance even before the playoff era. I agree with you, Steve. They are essentially, even more now than ever, TV commercial machines, right? They play commercials and the football comes in between the millions of dollars they sell in ad revenue. And for gamblers to be able to kind of sit on their butts December 26th and have a game to bet on. That's really the only things here. Does it really matter if Rutgers wins or loses this game? I'm sure to the diehard fans and to the players who want to get out right, and for Greg Schiano to sell on the recruiting trail, yes. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. And I think it just accentuates, again, like Pat said, the missed opportunity this season was because, even with everything that went wrong, you're one bad timeout and one win away from playing in the Citrus Bowl and being among, the better teams in college football.
And I think we're going to find out how much it matters to the players in a couple of days. We'll see which players choose to play. Some hope in that, right? I mean, based on social media, if you're reading the social media tea leaves, a lot of guys who I thought were on the fence about playing, IG'd, storied some Rate Bowl posts. I mean, this is where we're at, not trying to determine whether or not a guy's going to play or not. What do we think realistically? And Greg Schiano had no answers about either, but what do we think realistically here?
I think if Greg knew, he wouldn't tell us anyway, just to be frank, right. Just to put that out there. I think that there are really two guys I would be worried or not sure about, I would say. Kyle Monangai, who, again, is playing a very physical position, has been banged up all season, and has proven all he has to prove, right? Except for maybe NFL draft scouts. Maybe he wants to have one more big game and try to jump up from that 6th, 7th round range into a more secure place. And then Holland Pierce, who had an excellent year. Excellent. I mean, he allowed 1 sack on 460-something pass blocking opportunities.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Remarkable. This is a former walk-on who was 400 pounds, turning into the best left tackle Rutgers has had in a long time. I won't say Anthony Davis. That might feel a little hyperbolic, but I can't remember a left tackle playing as well as he has since then.
Right. And together, and to point out, together couldn't be a better commercial for this program. Just the way you described it. Under-recruited guys developed into NFL players. That's it. And it's a shame they're not playing, but I understand why they're not playing. Yeah.
Well, we're not sure if they're playing or not.
Right.
We're not sure.
I understand why they wouldn't play. I should rephrase that.
Yes, I think there's a chance they both play, to be clear. I don't think there's one guy where you're like, oh, like Colin Pierce, there's no chance he'll play. I don't think he should play. Personally, I could totally see him playing. I think it's totally within the ethos of the program, of him, his personality. I just don't think it's a smart move.
Yeah, two things real quick. Listening to the Kansas State coach yesterday, he was talking about the same situation last year. Deuce Vaughn was their really good running back, had a great career at Kansas State, was probably around the same draft grade as what Kyle Monungai will be. He ended up playing in their bowl game, having a really good game, and he said that certainly helped his stock. Right, he didn't get hurt, obviously, and now he's on the Cowboys. Was a good draft pick. So there is some incentive to play. I mean, you risk obviously the long-term injury, but that's the decision. And it's those two guys are the most NFL ready guys, most highest stock guys, but there are so many seniors that were playing through injuries throughout this season and just working their tails off. Like that's a whole nother thing of it. Like, do they have it in them to come back for one more game? And I think that's going to be something to follow as well.
Well, to go off that, also, they now have, I mean, it's not as much time as you would think, but they have a month to kind of heal up from those injuries. And maybe they think, I didn't put my best foot forward on tape during the season because I was banged up. Maybe I feel a bit more refreshed. Maybe I could build my stock up against this team who, again, this is part of the scheduling thing with Rutgers. This might be the second best team maybe Rutgers plays all year. Obviously, they might be depleted because of transfer portal stuff and opt-outs, but I mean, outside of Illinois and USC, maybe Kansas State might be the best team they play all year.
Right. Let's drill into that a little bit. It seemed like Greg Schiano gave these guys time off from the moment that final game ended against Michigan State. Wisely let them get away from football for a while, come back. The 15 practice thing, I'm looking at the calendar, it's December 9th. And obviously you're going to fly out there the 22nd or 23rd, I'm assuming. What's the
22nd? Yeah.
22nd. I mean, how do you squeeze in 15 practices in this time? Do you have any sense of what
it's finals right now too? And he was saying that we got to get through this finals week and take care of that stuff too. So it's a total cram for sure. Don't have the practice schedule yet, but yeah, it's definitely a time crunch.
Right. I wonder. I don't think they do 2-a-days, right? That doesn't really seem beneficial. So I guess you might just not have enough time to use all 15 practices, and might just have to kind of do what you can. Which again, I know that's probably the biggest benefit of making a bowl game is having these extra practices and working with the young guys. I just don't think that's part of the thing now that they moved everything up. I think because of the college football playoff, feels like things were all like a week later this year than last year. So that'll be something to kind of monitor going forward if they adjust it with timing of the playoff.
The biggest detriment about making the bowl game is that you're not focused entirely on the portal, which is interesting. Opens for business right now. We're open. Open the doors. Here we go. Everybody get in the portal. I guess that's interesting in some ways. Certainly Rutgers has the resources now. They have a staff dedicated to this stuff. They're scouting players out there all the time. I'm sorry. I look like trying to sell me home kit accessories on my watch. That's nice. Very helpful. Thank you, iWatch. But what do you think is going to happen? I mean, what's the sense with the portal now? I mean, obviously there's one guy in it that we know of, some more coming. What's the optimism here?
I would say Rutgers is in a different position than last year, where their heavy focus was retaining players because they had such a senior-laden veteran presence on that roster. This year, with a lot of those guys graduating and moving on, I think Rutgers is going to probably be in the mode of having to add a lot of players through the portal because to fill those spots, right? You probably feel good about a lot of young prospects you have on the roster. You probably still want to add veteran guys at multiple positions that we discussed last week, defensive line, at tackle and edge, at safety, certainly at cornerback, a lot of defensive positions, and then retain the guys you can. Thomas Amonko, you mentioned him. He's the first guy to enter the portal for Rutgers, a guy who, zigzagged between offense and defense. His heart is in offense. He wants to be a wide receiver, and Rutgers thought he'd be better off as a safety. He probably looks at the wide receiver room and sees a lot of guys ahead of him, Ian Strong, KJ Duff, doesn't see the snaps there, and he's probably going to have to move down a level, which, that's kind of just the benefit of the portal too. Guys who are at the end of the roster can find a new home. So I'm not sure quite how things will work out. I think I spoke erroneously on the last podcast. I believe the revenue sharing does start next year. It would go through July 1st, which means that next season that Rutgers would have access to, and I imagine other teams will have access to revenue sharing. I've seen Kansas, 2 of their players agree to new deals, which is an insane phrase to be throwing around for college athletes. Their quarterback is coming back on a new deal, and another transfer they added is signing a deal. So those things might be something you start hearing in this era. And it's very difficult to quantify how that will help hurt Rutgers and how that will impact the whole thing.
And people have asked about what's happening at Rutgers. We don't know the answer because I don't know that they know a lot of the answers here. Certainly part of this is the flux in the department. We have not spoken to Ryan Passari on the record in an interview where we can ask these questions, hoping that's going to change before the bowl game, fingers crossed. But for the most part, it's just hard. It's hard to know what's going on with that stuff. But yeah, you're seeing a lot of those people are planning, and certainly Rutgers is also planning for the revenue sharing part of it. How it affects the portal. This is the first time we're going through it. People describe on building the plane as you're landing, and I think that's a very accurate description. I don't know what it's going to mean. I don't think they know what it's going to mean in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they're still waiting for the specifics that are going to come out of the court ruling and all that. But I know a full confidence that Rutgers has been preparing for this situation since the minute it was announced, right? Like they're not playing catch up in a sense that they're going to be so caught off guard, like they didn't know this was coming, right? Like that's why I thought like this recruiting class, it was high in numbers because there are going to be roster limit changes and things like that. Like they're very much. Greg Schiano's not stupid. He's really good at his job, right? Like obviously he knows that this is the new world and he's preparing for it. So, while his answers may be coy and things like that, there's absolutely no chance that they're building the plane as it's landing. This has all been prepared for a long time.
Yes. Right. When it comes to the off the field portal stuff, navigating the new realities of college sports, Greg Schiano has done a great job, a very good job, a great job at that. This is an awful transition, but let's talk about the basketball program, which might have not done as good a job. Oh my goodness, did I just make that transition? Oh, that's mean. That's mean. But
that was mean. That was mean.
Was it mean? Was it mean?
It's warranted. It's warranted.
It's warranted. I don't know if it's warranted yet, but all right. We've got to talk about it. Obviously, we talked on the last show that we're not panicking yet, and I think my analogy now is I am not hitting the panic button, but I have a flap over, like I have one of those covers on the panic button because I'm worried that if Fonseca comes over and sees it, if he comes over my house, he's just going to mash it, and I need like a level of protection over my panic button. But I have now lifted the cover, so I am prepared. The panic button is now open. I'm aware of where it is, and I'm limbering. I don't know if it's going to be it might be a fist thing. I don't know if I can just do it with one finger. I think I've really got to like get my entire, fidget toys, strengthening the fist to pound it. If they lose to Penn State on Tuesday, the world will pound it. It won't just be us. Everyone's going to pound the panic button. They'll be 5-5. They will have lost what would be one of their 3 easiest, you would think, schedule wise, Big Ten games. No,
Penn State beat Purdue. I know they beat them at home. They look a little better than people expected preseason.
Yeah.
Look, here's what I would say. Losing to Penn State would not be the end of the world. Losing any of the other games you have in December would send the entire city of Piscataway into full-blown panic, as it should. Seton Hall is going to be a quadrant 4 game because they suck so much.
They're not going to lose that one.
They stink out loud. Right. But Rutgers was not a great team last year, and they beat Seton Hall, the best Seton Hall team in a long time, at the Prudential Center last year. So you can't really bank on beating bad teams in this rivalry. Mm-hmm. And then obviously Princeton is a great team that will shred any team that has no defensive fundamentals. And that's kind of describing Rutgers at this point. And Columbia, before they lost to Albany, had the nation's longest winning streak. They look great. Anyway, just to go on I have a lot of thoughts here. And you guys can cut me off at any time if you want to interject, but I might be.
Well, take us to what happened in the Ohio State game. You were out in Columbus. I think this is the one. And again, like we were in Vegas, I saw a team that was competitive and lost a couple of close games. This time I saw a team that did not look competitive and lost to what I think is a pretty mediocre team. That's what I saw.
They lost to an Ohio State team that was down by 40 points to Maryland 3 days earlier on the road. Here's the thing. This is why I thought losing those games to Alabama and Texas A&M was such a lost opportunity. Because if you get those high quadrant 1A wins, like that gives you such a cushion, right? It's not in a vacuum the end of the world to lose a road game in the Big Ten to a quad 1 opponent. That's going to happen. But these things are now stacking up. That's 3 quadrant 1 losses in 3 quadrant 1 games, right? Mm-hmm. And you'll have a lot of opportunities in January and February to build the resume, but you're running out of time with each successive loss, especially if you don't protect home court against Penn State on Tuesday. On the court, what I saw was essentially a microcosm of all of the issues I see on this team in the first month of the season. Defensively, they do not have a ball stopper. They don't have a Caleb McConnell, a Mawat Mag, a guy who guys were saying, it's not a big loss when he entered the portal. My God, people would beg for Mawat Mag right now to defend a guy on the ball. They don't have a rim protector that they've had over the years. They don't have Miles Johnson and Cliff Omori, guys who, when guys were getting blown by defensively, when Rutgers plays aggressive man-to-man, they had a guy at the rim that could either prevent a shot or block a shot. That is a huge missing thing on this team. It's why Rutgers was so good defending the 2 last year, because Cliff was there. And above all, Steve Pikiell teams have been elite defensively, yes, because they've had the guys that can do it, but 2, they always seemed like they know where to be. They were fundamentally sound. Guys were rarely out of place. I'm watching the team against Ohio State, and guys are just, for multiple possessions, lost, have no idea where to be, wide open dunks and layups all over the place. And it's not just one guy. That's the most alarming thing. It's not like you could just pull one guy and things figure it out. Guys are just, they don't know where to be. They can't recover, and they're giving up so many easy baskets. Now, people might say, maybe the Rutgers just has to change and not be a defensive-oriented team and just win shootouts. That's fine. But the issue is on the other end, they have 2 plays that work. Dylan Harper gets the ball by himself and drives into 7 people in traffic, or Ace Bailey takes the dumbest shots you have ever seen, and because he is so freaking good, some of them go in. Like, he made some of the dumbest shots I've ever seen against Ohio State that kept them afloat. You can't bank on a guy hitting, defended baseline jumpers all day. You just can't.
17 footers.
And then when that isn't working, they have no semblance of a half-court offense. That, again, this has been an issue throughout the Pikiell tenure, and we thought maybe they don't have enough talented players to work an offense. You now have 2 lottery picks, and you can't create open shots for your 3-point shooters. Yeah. You're rarely getting open looks for your centers, who aren't that great, but they're not getting open looks. You're not moving the ball. There's no off-ball movement. There's no screening. There's no passing. There is nothing aside from one guy having the ball, 4 guys standing around, and a bad shot being taken at the buzzer most of the time. And that, to me, is the most alarming. On both ends of the floor, it's not just in a vacuum, one game guys are playing bad. It's that I see no offensive identity, and defensively, I see a mess. Yeah. I think they can fix it. But I will say this. Steve Pikiell, I asked him this, and I think he was being a little coy. He's had, again, elite defenses at Rutgers. 3 seasons out of his 8 years here, he's had a top 10 defense. The guy can coach the hell out of defense. He must be so mad, so frustrated, so I don't even know what the word watching this, right? And Dylan Harper's a guy who, for his entire basketball career, has won. Ace Bailey's a guy, for most of his career, just wins games. They must be going nuts. They must be going nuts watching all this happen. You could see some frustration from Dylan Harper on the court during games, during those bad stretches. You could see Ace Bailey. It looked like him and Emmanuel were having a bit of a discussion at the end of the game. When he's walking to the locker room, he's kind of pulling at his collar. Guys are getting upset, and I wonder if they get one more loss to Penn State, they lose one of these games they can't lose in December, do things start going off the rails? I don't think so, but at this point,
possible. Yeah.
You got to worry about it, right?
Yeah. Pat, what worries me is watching that game. It seems like it took a week for defenses to figure out, all right, we're going to stop Dylan from getting to the basket somehow. And then everything fell apart. Like, Dylan was clearly, he was kind of passive. He wasn't aggressive enough because I think they were defending him well early in that game. And the other flip side of that, it's like, if you look at Devin Royal, who's a good player. He's not an old Big Ten. He's a good player. He's a fine player. There's like 15 Devin Royals in the Big Ten. There's a guy who can get to the basket. They tried Martini. He can't stay in front of him. They tried Durkak. He's not big enough. They've got no one to defend that kind of player. And it's just, I don't know what happens if it's like just looking at that. You can't defend the rim. You can't keep guys in front of you. You do nothing well defensively. It's not just that you're missing one thing.
Right. It was Royal in this game, but think back to those Monmouth, St. Peter's games where it was guards going off, right? Like, so it's a new guy every game that is slashing and just destroying Rutgers offensively. So it's to me, a big picture defensive gaffe, because it's not like we could say, okay, they don't have the center. That's fine. But what happened against Monmouth and St. Peter's, right? Like they weren't guarding those guys either. So it's a complete breakdown of defense on every level at this point. And it's a steal from Greg Schietto. This is going to need to be like a strip down to the studs type moment for Peichel, right? They got to rebuild this whole thing.
Brian, you talked to Peichel. Do you think he's nervous, or is he what me worry? I mean, what was the sense while you're out there and reading the Peichelology? Not quite like Schianology, obviously, but still.
Peichelology, to his credit, is very consistent. And he said what he probably said multiple times during skids over the years. They'll fix it. They'll figure it out. It's a long season. You got to go through the journey. And again, to his credit, he has turned around worse situations. He made the tournament when they looked dead to rights in 21, and they won those 4 straight games against ranked opponents. He's done it in the past. I try not to fall into the trap that I fell into a little bit earlier this season of like, they'll figure it out. They figured it out in the past. It's possible they don't. It really is possible that defensively, this just is what they are. And that's concerning. Now, I think Steve believes he can fix it. I think that's just kind of the way he's built his career as a coach, that he takes these difficult positions. Buzz Williams credited him for going to difficult jobs and winning. This is a very difficult job this season in the sense of trying to get these guys to guard and trying to make something that he almost never had at Rutgers in terms of a functional offense that isn't. They've run iso ball throughout his entire tenure. It used to be Geo Baker and Ron Harper Jr., and it looked good then. It looks good now with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey because those guys are elite one-on-one scorers, but they're going to need more from other guys, and they got to figure out how to do that. So I think they could figure it out, but I can certainly believe there is some frustration mounting from everybody because this is just, and even the fan base too, right? Like this was supposed to be a great year, one of the greatest years in recent history. And while nothing is done yet, I want to emphasize that things could change on a dime here. Mm-hmm. Being 5-4, no matter who you've played and where you've played, I think Steve Peichel is banking on going back to Jersey Mike's Arena will fix all this. Maybe it will. I think they got to play better to fix it.
It's got to happen this month. Certainly. We got to see 4 wins or All right. Let's dive into some questions because there's a lot of good basketball questions here on the Discord. And if you're not in the Discord, send you an invitation. Discord's getting a little hot, getting heated, getting frisky at the Discord. I love it. You think it's just frisky on the show? Join the Discord. All right, Dave White, of course. What he wants to know, this is a good one. What realistic changes would you make to Rutgers basketball right now? And it's good. Put your basketball hat on, Brian. I mean, honestly, and I don't have an easy one. I thought maybe playing zone, but then I saw them in zone. I don't think they're good at that. I don't know. That's not like that. There's skill required. Good zone teams play it all the time. They know how to play at Syracuse. There's a reason why they don't switch out of it. It's their habits that you have to learn to play good zone defense as well. What do you think?
I don't know. If I knew, I'd probably be on staff somewhere trying to figure it out. This is a difficult job in front of them. Right. I would probably play a guy like PJ Hayes more. I know he's one of the many guys on this team have very difficult time keeping guys in front of him defensively. I understand that.
Play a lick of defense. I mean, he's terrible. Who else on cement shoes? I don't know, but they don't get on the ball to shoot. They don't get the ball to shoot to make shots. And I believe me, and I wondered about it as well because he's at least an experienced player. But they haven't. How many shots a game has he taken? I thought he's going to.
He played 4 minutes. He took 0 shots because he played 4 minutes.
Here's the thing. 4 minutes again. That was all he played.
He played one stint of 4 minutes. Here's the thing. Right. I agree with you that he's not the greatest defender on this roster. Who else played a lick of defense against Ohio State? Who?
Right. All right. But then you've got to play guys who have potential to be good defenders, right? Is that why he's playing Dylan Grant? Like he sees some of these guys.
It's not about potential.
But you're looking. He is throwing guys out there in hopes that someone plays. That's what's I think that's what's happening.
Yes,
he is throwing guys out there with hopes that someone shows him something defensively. It hasn't happened yet.
Right? So look, Dylan Grant didn't play. He played maybe 2 minutes against Wagner. Did not play against any of the other low major teams. Why he did not get experience in those games to me, and is now playing minutes against Texas A&M and Ohio State is a complete head scratcher. I would say probably a little bit of mismanagement there. They like him for his athleticism, which again is what a lot of these guys don't have. Martini doesn't have, PJ Hayes doesn't have. But what Dylan Grant might give you an athleticism on the defensive end, he gives you in horrible shots on the offensive end. He's 0-8 through 2 games, rarely takes good shots, really doesn't do much offensively. And again, I think with PJ Hayes, the thing would be if he's on the court, him or Martini, you would hope they can manufacture some open shots. I mean, the biggest indictment I would say is that the best offensive play Rutgers had against Ohio State was Emmanuel Obole grabbing the ball at the top of the key, dribbling past the guy, and throwing a pass behind the center's back to an open Jordan Durkak for a 3. If that is your best offensive play, that is so alarming. I cannot even begin to describe it. They got to figure out somehow to make Dylan Harper one of the best playmaking point guards in the country, put him in positions where he has shooters around him and he can create. Because if you have no shooters around you, they're going to do what Ohio State did. They'll play drop coverage with their center, and they'll have 4 guys in the paint with their arms up like this, and Dylan Harper may be one of the best finishers in college basketball. He's not going to finish over 4 guys.
Nope. Well, he muted himself. He got so excited. He muted himself.
You gotta
Now you're all screwed up. Fix your microphone.
Yeah.
Pat, you have an answer?
The only thing you got to get more out of a guy like Jeremiah Williams that carried this team for stretches last year.
Yeah,
he's got to step up, and you're going to need Ace Bailey to be better than he has been. I don't think there's any philosophical changes that you can make other than like these guys just have to be better.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely.
The secondary scores aren't there. That's been the big issue too. Besides the defense, obviously,
you got to that'd be one thing I would say. You've got to ride with these guys. If when they play these teams after Penn State, I mean, you just got to run some offense. I want Zach Martin taking 8 or 9 shots. I want PJ Hayes. I want someone on the perimeter just standing there catching the ball and shooting. And if they shoot 2 for 27 and they lose to Columbia, call me and I'll admit it. But at least you're showing some. Let Dylan drive and dish. Like the Dylan driving and the crazy layups has been great. But let's see an offense. I guess that's what I would do. It's not a philosophical change. It's just like emphasis on this.
The thing is that they have 2 guys who are really good 3-point shooters, and then the next crop of guys aren't even like mediocre 3-point shooters. They're bad 3-point shooters, right? Like Jordan Durkak and Jeremiah Williams are in the 20s. JaMychal Davis is in the 10s. And when you have those guys out on the perimeter, any smart coach is going to tell his guys to stay 50 feet away from them. Let them take all the threes they want. If you lose to JaMychal Davis going 4-4 on 3 or Jeremiah Williams going 5-5, you live with it. That's going to happen. Yeah. But you rather leave those guys open than let Dylan Harper get to the rim. So you put 4 guys in the paint, you leave the perimeter open. That changes if you add Zach Martini and PJ Hayes. So they got to figure something out. And if they can't figure out the defense, I'm not sure how far this team can go. But if you're not going to be able to defend, you should be able to have guys out there that can score and keep up. And I would say 14-point loss to Ohio State, that felt really generous. I don't know how it looked on TV. I'm watching that game in person, and they should have lost that game by 30 probably.
Looked bad on TV as well. Yeah. All right.
On the Ace Bailey thing, really quick on Ace Bailey. 1, they need to figure out how to tell him to stop taking bad shots. That's probably not going to happen. 2, they need to tell him or get him to play defense regularly with a better motor. When he plays defense with a will, he has a chance of being one of the best defenders this team has ever had. His length, his athleticism, his instincts, it's there. They just got to unlock it from him somehow.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Ace Bailey. It's funny. He can take the shot selection. I'm not worried about the defense. You're absolutely right. I don't think that's just him. I think that's Dylan. I think that's everybody. You don't see a lot of possessions where, we're pounding the court. We're getting, it's emphasis on this. And yeah, totally agreed. All right. This RU Tyler B wanted to know, does seeing teams like Kansas lose, Illinois to Northwestern, Oregon at home, Memphis by 13 at home, etc., give you more hope and perspective on Rutgers losses? Short answer, no. And I love the question, and I get it. People are saying, "Hey, look, I mean, Kansas lost a couple games to unranked teams. I get it. Oregon just lost. They're really good. We saw that those teams have W's on their. I think every one of them has W's on their resumes that are impressive. Like I've seen Oregon play. They won that thing in Vegas. They're really good. All right, you're gonna lose a game. You're not gonna go undefeated. You're not in Indiana at 75. It's Kansas too. Kansas beat Duke, right? Kansas is good. I've seen Kansas. They're going to win. They're going to be right there. I'm not worried about Kansas. I'm not worried about Memphis. None of these teams. I'm worried about the one right in front of me, and they just haven't had a win like that. So no, I don't think it makes me feel better at all.
I think this question would have a little bit more juice if Rutgers had won one of the games in Vegas.
Yes.
If you beat Alabama, losing to Ohio State on the road is fine. You lose to Alabama, you lose to Texas A&M, you lose to Ohio State. Again, the quad one opportunities are plentiful, but they're running out with each missed opportunity. And again, Rutgers has struggled mightily to win on the road under Steve Pikiell. It doesn't seem like having 2 NBA lottery picks will help that kind of block that they've had. And it's difficult to win on the road in the Big Ten. Illinois lost to Northwestern, to this question's point. So if you're going to do that, it's going to be really hard to bank making the NCAA tournament, which I think they will. I still think they'll make the tournament for what it's worth. I'm not like the doomers on the message boards thinking this team is going to miss the NIT. They're going to make the tournament, I think. But you're giving yourself a really short, small margin of error if you're going to depend on winning all of your home games in the Big Ten, winning all the games you have to, and then maybe stealing a road game or two. They got to start racking up these Q1 wins to build a resume and giving themselves some breathing room, or else it's going to be a very, very, very uncomfortable February.
I would say this: they're in jeopardy of losing a lot more games than winning against a top 5 team. I think, in my opinion, at this point, right? Like I'm more worried about losing to Princeton than I am beating Purdue.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it.
Very fair point.
Yeah.
That's a very fair point. I agree.
All right. So for you, Pat, this is a question from Patrick Mella on the Twitter, on the X. Should they fail to make the tournament, would this be the most disappointing season in Rutgers basketball history? People are already thinking about this. This fan base is just, yeah. I don't know. It might be the most disappointing thing that's ever happened in Rutgers sports. 154 years of Rutgers sports. Hey, look, it's Candace.
Hey,
Candace Lanning making an appearance. Oh, with the baby.
Just in time to talk about the gloom and doom.
What was I talking about? Why was I upset about Rutgers basketball?
This is it. This is the future.
Nothing matters. Look at that. Everything's fine.
Exactly. It's great. It's great. It's great. So
good. If you can't see this, if you're listening to this on Spotify, the most beautiful baby in the world just made an appearance here on our YouTube, on our screen, and everything's good with the world. I don't know what I was so upset about.
So
Clearly
this is it. He was napping. I had responsibility to watch him when he woke up from his nap, and now he's up. Just like Rutgers basketball is going to wake up against Penn State. Ready? Boom. There you go. Would this be the worst? To answer your question, sorry. I mean, considering where the hype was, absolutely. It has to be.
It's not going to be that bad. Everything's going to be okay. Yes, it is.
That was a well-timed baby entrance.
Talking to my dog like that now.
Is the baby like the Rutgers fan base now that we're talking to them? It's going to be okay. Don't worry
It's going to be okay. Don't worry about a thing. Oh, it's just fine. Everything's going to be okay.
To answer your question, if Rutgers basketball with 2 lottery picks misses the NCAA
Tournament outright, it would be the biggest disappointment since they lost the second game against Princeton in 1869 and missed out on the national championship. That would be the only comparable moment, I would say, because again,
it'd be bad.
You're never going to have this opportunity again, ever. And I don't think let's not get ahead of what it would mean if they missed the tournament, because I was about to go into a rabbit hole. Let's see what.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time. Let's just I shouldn't even brought the question up. Ever since the baby came on, I've just been. Yeah,
it's a fair question because people are starting to go into a really deep rabbit hole of them.
I can't blame them. I understand.
Let's relax, folks. Let's relax.
All right.
It's not quite panic time. Where's my panic button? This has been. I'm keeping this away, stowed away. Where's the panic?
You didn't even have
stowed
a cover
away.
on yours. I know.
It's early.
Right. All right. Let's do some more football questions because it just seems like it's something we talk about without going nuts. All right. Corey Heatherman just signed a 2-year contract at Minnesota. Who's next? Old Mark wants to know. Why would that stop them? Just pay Corey Heatherman. I don't know. I think obviously PJ Fleck got ahead of that. Corey Heatherman seems like he wants to stay where he is. I don't think they're going to throw the bucket of money at him like they threw at Kirk Shiraka to get him off the staff, because Greg wanted someone he could trust on offense to build that offense. I think he trusts himself to build the defense, and I don't think he's going to chase. I don't think he has to chase salaries to get Heatherman from Minnesota. But who's the next guy? What do you think?
It'll be much more expensive to get him too.
Yeah,
Shiraka's deal was not, I don't think, as prohibitive with the buyout. Right? You're talking if he
Correct.
re-upped for another year with the same salary, that's $1.7 million. Right?
Did the baby just wait? Did the baby just leave? The baby is now going down the hallway. No, it's an escape. It's a jailbreak. It's over.
This is the greatest podcast of all time.
The baby was heading for the door. Is there a staircase behind that door? What's back there? Like, is there like a bucket of nails behind that? What is back there?
You're muted. You're muted.
You're muted. I don't want
out the door, out the door, right down the stairs. That
right
would
down
have
the
been
stairs.
nice.
You could have been great.
I will say, defensive coordinator. I'm I think we're trending more towards someone that's not going to be an obvious pick here. So I think Heatherman was a great option, but it was never going to be realistic to me that they were going to steal him away from Minnesota after everything that's happened. No shot and you just saw what happened. So I think you got to find the next Harris Simiak, an up and coming guy that can make a statement and learn under Shiano, right? Like I think it's a good opportunity for someone to come from like a FCS, head coaching position, just like Harris Simiak. So I'm going to start looking at guys like that.
PJ Flex said, "No man takes 3 coordinators from me. You might take 1, you might take 2, but no, by golly, not the 3rd one. I'm keeping Corey Heatherman."
That's great. All right, so we've answered the question about where Rutgers would gone if Greg didn't call the timeout. We'd be in Orlando, and we'd all be going, booking flights with our families. Rocco wants to know the bowl practice thing. We tried to answer that one. All right, the bowl memories. This is good. Eric Orlando asked about. Do you have any, me directly, but you guys weren't around then. Do you have any memories of the Inside Bowl back in 2005 or the weeks leading up to that game? I went with my dad and brother, and it was a great experience all around and set a fairly high bar for bowl games in future years. Can't wait to get back to Phoenix. Now, I've heard that a lot from people who really did enjoy that trip. And I think part of it was the newness of it. Obviously, this was just the second bowl in Rutgers history, the first that was out of New Jersey. I didn't make the trip. Jerry Eisenberg was still still writing. He's 93 years old, but he was still very active on the staff. He traveled for that week with Tom Lucci, who was our beat writer at the time. So I don't remember the game itself. I do remember the buildup, and I remember specifically, this is funny, I wrote one of the worst columns I've ever written. And I look back at it now, like people say, what columns make you cringe? And I was only just a few months into my I got it and started writing columns in April. So this was December. So about half a year as a columnist. And I wrote that Greg Schiano got a bowl bonus. And we were writing about he made $50,000 to get Rutgers back into a bowl game for the second time in 130 years. And I wrote that he should donate that money or give that money to students so they could travel to the game.
That's a great column.
It's kind of cringy looking back now.
No, you're right. You're right.
Hand over $50,000 to so some junior can go fly to the game. I don't know. That's pretty cringy. I'm spending Greg's money, taking money out of his wife's Christmas fund.
Hey, he earned it. He was what, 38 at the time. Yeah. That probably went a long way for him.
Yep. Yeah. Coach, if you're listening 18 years later, I apologize for that take. That was a hot take right there. Woo.
I think maybe this year the flights are expensive. A lot of fans do want to go. Made another $50,000 this year, and he's made a lot of money in his career.
Yeah, but he could send 50 people to the game. That doesn't make a difference.
I think any person that wants to go will sacrifice the trip to watch on TV if they can get a left tackle. So if Greg's going to donate anything here, let's use it on NIL.
Use it the right way. I know. Yeah, exactly. All right. So, and then now Mr. C wanted to need a trip down memory lane on the 2006 Texas Bowl. Capped the 10-2 season. Seriously good team. Yeah, I was at that game. I did go to that one. I just remember how the disappointment there was palpable for playing in that game. The problem was there was no middle level. There's no Citrus Bowl on the table. The Big East lost all those teams. They lost their bowl agreements. It was either BCS or nothing. And Rutgers fell into nothing, essentially. I mean, just third place team in the league, Texas Bowl, first year bowl, not a lot of interest in the game, playing a 6-6 opponent. I remember how bad Josh Freeman was. And the irony of that is, of course, Josh Freeman ended up being the quarterback that essentially ended Greg Schiano's professional career, which I think, is kind of, I don't know if irony or just, oh, that sucks. Went to Tampa Bay and was just a terrible NFL quarterback. But yeah, so I do remember Ray Rice in a cowboy hat. That was kind of cool. Memory lane. I mean, that was neat. They made the most of it. And that's one thing Greg has done. He's made the most of a lot of trips like this. Even like the Gator Bowl. I don't know if you guys remember that. Even the Gator Bowl was, the baby's crying now. Is the baby upset about this? I'm sorry. Look, I'm sorry. Am I talking too much? I'll stop.
No, we love the memories. He loves the memories.
You love memories?
It's all about story time.
Okay. All right. Phew, man. I feel like I've got this audience now. I'm worried I'm going to say the wrong thing. I'm going to curse. I'm going to put like ideas in this. This baby's too young. This thing should be PG-13, this podcast. This baby's far too young to be listening to us talk about Rutgers bowl games, right? Brian, am I wrong about this?
The baby's making the same reaction to all the Rutgers fans whenever you start talking. Whenever I start talking. That's in their faces while they're driving.
We need an age warning. We need an age warning on the podcast. We can't have this. Let's
wrap this thing up. Poor Pat is fighting for his life over here.
I've got more questions. I'm just gonna keep going.
Keep going. He's good.
What else? Let's see. This would be great. We're gonna give you a chance to talk about wrestling in the what else segment while the baby's on the floor. Let's see how far you can get into this.
Okay, if I have to go for a double leg takedown as he's going for the stairs, that's good. Just holler at me if you see him. Rutgers wrestling had a very good weekend, albeit against some lesser competition. Rolled Lock Haven on Friday night, came back and just thumped Princeton It's a rivalry in the sense that it's the two best teams in New Jersey, but Rutgers has dominated that series for a really long time. And while Princeton didn't have a lot of its guys, Rutgers took care of business. And, now they'll go out to Ohio this week against, a couple other lower level opponents, and then shaping up for the Midlands tournament and shaking out the lineup is really what's important. So we'll have some updates there on the lineup as we go. And
does not want to be on. The baby does not want to be on.
I thought the wrestling would do it for him because he is a wrestling guy. He watches a lot of wrestling with me. So
yeah, okay, it's fair enough. All right, women's basketball, Brian, lost to Wisconsin in dramatic fashion.
So just to kind of set the scene here, I did not watch the sequence. I saw it in the play-by-play.
Okay.
Alec Crowdhamel from Rivals brought to my.
I unplugged my mic. This podcast is an abject disaster.
Amateur hour here at the podcast. New Jersey's second best podcast based on the rankings.
We're being first this year, baby. No one else has
This will not be one we enter in the contest this year. I still can't hear you. The baby's crying. You're still muted. What is this? I'm gonna start singing. I'm gonna make this truly. I want to go off the rails here. You can listen to me do a little Christmas carols. It's the most wonderful time. Are you back? Okay. Yeah. I mean, sort of. Yeah. Okay. Nope. All right, that's it. I'm cutting it off. You're never going to know what happened. You're never going to know what happened in the Rutgers basketball game. I'll tell you, they lost 66-64 in the Big Ten opener final seconds, despite a double-digit comeback. Destiny Adams, 23 points. Cami McMiller's 20 were not enough. Rutgers has lost 4 of its last 5. Candace has taken the baby away. And I'm just crestfallen that's where we ended up here. That's it. Brian, are you back? You want to say goodbye?
I'm back. I have no final thoughts.
No final thoughts.
This is going to be the editing job of a lifetime.
No, I want to leave there's no editing here. I want everyone to see what transpired in this. I want to know what an absolute, the baby's got, I could say, what an absolute shit show we are. We're criticizing the Rutgers defense. You should have seen Lanny try to play defense on that last possession. What a disaster.
Your
microphone, the baby. I'm
sorry.
I mean, I am Dylan Harper on the show right now. I'm the only one holding my end of the bargain. Until you're just absolute disgrace. I am done with this amateur hour. I'm in the transfer portal.
I apologize immensely to all the viewers and fans out there. I lost my Dad of the Year card, and the problem is we just keep rambling. We used to be tight and concise, and now I don't know if anyone makes it to the end of these podcasts. It's really incredible.
All right, well, hopefully it made the end of this one because it got fun. All right, let's sign off. I don't know when we'll be back to do another one, probably in a couple, maybe a week or so, to talk some basketball, talk some more bowl. We'll preview some Kansas State rate bowl stuff. And then, until then, do some Christmas shopping. Keep your babies on lockdown. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Rutgers Rant. To participate in the conversation and receive live updates about the Scarlet Knights directly to your phone, sign up at nj.com/insider.